Hello and welcome to this month's, or should I say, the year that I'm going to encompass is 1992 volumes of Nintendo Power Magazine, which go start here with January 1992, Super Castlevania 4 cover. And as you can see, it's a little beat up. But this was volume 32 and it was January 1992. Inside, there was a centerfold. This is a checklist, by the way, for those of you who don't know. I do these every month, encompassing an entire year of Nintendo Power magazines, and the stuff that makes them collectible, collecting tips, the inserts that are in there. This is the centerfold for the January volume in 1992, The Rocketeer. Now, you'll notice it doesn't have any Disney markings on here. Let me see. Yeah, it does say Walt Disney Company there, but no Disney markings. And then there's probably the best Zelda of all time, Link to the Past, but that's not what this picture is about. So on the back of that is Super Castlevania 4. This is a map of your way to Dracula's castle. And that's on the back side of that. This year, in Nintendo Power Magazine, starts a lot of things. They start the Super Power Supplies, Super Power Club, I should say, and some comics that lasted the full year. There was Zelda for A Link to the Past. These were done in chapters. And then Mario, Super Mario Adventure, which were done in episodes. These were manga art, but they were translated to English, I can't remember if they were made for Nintendo Power Magazine or if they were just previously existing and then they just brought them over here to America. I think that it was a simultaneous thing, like they released them in Japan as manga and then they released them here in Nintendo Power Magazine. And that's something that's a tradition. I mean, there was already Nestor comics in Nintendo Power Magazine, but this is a tradition that started and would continue with Metroid and Star Fox and others to have their own comics inside of Nintendo Power Magazine as a part of the magazine. And then later, you would have things like Pokemon that would actually have little miniature comics inside of the magazine that you could take out or leave in. I left all mine in because of collector's purposes or whatever. This is beat up. This cover right here. This is volume 33, February 1992. This game is so good. You'll find in these magazines, you'll find some either rarer or more expensive or just pretty good NES games near the end of near the beginning of the Super Nintendo's lifespan. This always happens. Those games go up in price because they don't make as many because they're pushing the new system, or they don't have as much shelf time or shelf space because everybody's paying attention to the new systems. It happens near the end of every generation. The NES still continued on well after the Super NES. Nintendo Power Magazine, was equal and fair and showing not just the current stuff, but also for users of the older systems, what they could get. And Turtles 3 was an amazing game. Now, this is beat up because I had originally sold all of my Turtle stuff years and years ago. You can find it on YouTube. I got some goofy videos of me whining about having to sell them, and people make fun of me for them. But I sold a bunch of figures, including comics and magazines, all about the movies, and then the ones that had the covers for the Turtles. I sold those. So this is something that I replaced later on, and as you can see, it's beat up. This isn't my original copy. My original copy belongs to whoever bought my Turtle collection all those years ago. Turtle collection that's worth way more now, but these look like the movie ones. But the Turtles 3 game was not based off the movie ones, but obviously these were people, the artist was a fan of the movies, and there you go. Here's Lemmings. That was the centerfold in that volume. And on the back side of that, there was Mystical Ninja, or Goemon. It's the Legend of the Mystical Ninja, is what they call it here in America, but it's Goemon in Japan. And then this is a map. And then we have the second chapter to Zelda and the second episode to Super Mario Adventures. Then we have, and this is, I always thought that this was a cool cover because it was an actual, like, actor. They did that for a couple of covers, like the second issue we talked about in the first video, Volume 2, where they actually had somebody dressed in armor as Simon Belmont with Dracula's head. Here is, somebody wielding a Master Sword replica and shield, and this is awesome. Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past cover for March 1992. They didn't start putting the month and year on the covers yet, but this is volume 34, and the centerfold was the Addams Family. That was a big deal at the time. This is Ocean Games did this. And then on the back of that, there is, I believe this is Joe and Mac. It's one of the first Super Nintendo games I had, because I got it as a surprise gift, and they were like, well, you're going to have to go over to your friends to open, or to borrow a game. And this was a game that he didn't mind letting me borrow, my friend Craig at the time. And it was Joe and Mac. It's actually based off of the arcade game, Joe and Mac Caveman Ninja. That was on the back of that. And then there's Zelda Link to the Past Chapter 3. And I like the artwork on these. They actually have released these several times. I got the Nintendo Power branded ones, but they have re-released them several times as just full comic books, or full comic omnibuses, sometimes in hardcover form, sometimes like as if it's a book or whatever. And they're pretty cool. And then there's Super Mario Adventures. You'll notice some things in the Super Mario Adventures and even in the Zelda comic books. They talk about mass. They talk about, for Zelda anyway, they talk about mass. They talk about, characters that weren't even in the game, non-playable characters. They kind of gave them their own little lore. And with Super Mario Adventures, they talk about the wedding that Bowser wants to plan with Peach, which at the time was Princess Toadstool, and the Koopa Kids, and making Yoshi more of a forefront character, even though he was new for Super Mario World. So, now we're at volume 35, which I believe is March, April. Am I on April or May? But this is 1992, WWF Super WrestleMania. I love, look how gigantic Hulk's hand is here. And then look at how tiny his hand is here, holding the Super Nintendo controller. That's pretty crazy. I think they did that on another cover too, and where it was a wrestler, and then they just put a controller in their hand. I guess maybe to pay homage to this cover right here. But I think that's Earthquake or Typhoon. I don't ask me. I mean, I was big into wrestling at the time, but I really didn't know all their names and stuff. But anyways, there's Hulk giving big leg drop. And CD-ROM tech update. Ooh, that's going to be something in the future, not in Nintendo Power Magazine, but as a Nintendo fan in general, you're going to have to do some research on and find out more stuff about it, because it's an interesting part of video game history, Nintendo history. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting stuff. So, but Street Fighter 2 on the centerfold. This is some goofy artwork, but there you go. And on the back of that was the Addams Family. There's like a little walkthrough here, and then we also got the chapter 4. Of The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, and episode 4 of Super Mario Adventures, the comic book. Here's the wedding cake, and it's funny. Darkwing Duck is the cover of volume 36. and Krusty's Funhouse. A very Lemmings-like game is the centerfold. I wish there would have been a cover or centerfold for Contra 3, because Contra 3 is amazing. I think at the time, Nintendo still wanted to stay away from the word Contra. That was the whole reason why they called Operation C the portable Contra game, and Super C, why they called them C instead of Contra. It was more of an urging from Nintendo, even though it was Konami's game, but it was obviously an urging from Nintendo, or maybe even some people within Konami thought, ooh, in America, we better not call it, because of the Iran-Contra affair that was going on at the time. They didn't want people to be throwing around the word Contra so loosely. So now this is from 1.2 to 5.1 of, what game is this? Oh, this is Super Adventure Island. Sort of has a Joe and Mac feel to it, although Adventure Island, that franchise is well more established than Joe and Mac. But at the time, this was the Super Nintendo one, and it sort of had a Joe and Mac feel to the artwork. I just wanted to point that out. Here's the Master Sword, an Old Enemy, Chapter 5, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past comic. So, wow, there it is, Master Sword. And then Super Mario Adventures comic, also in this volume. And then the next volume is volume 37 with Lemmings on the cover. Notice also on the cover, this is a little greased up because there was the sticker residue, but it says only one more issue of Nintendo Power left. Take action now to keep getting your magazines. This, what I'm getting at here is that I kept this one. This was one of those ones where they had they printed it on the on the cover. Sometimes they had an overlay cover, and that was very disappointing when they would do that kind of stuff, because you basically had if you wanted to collect them, or if you didn't want that overlay to be on there, if you ripped it off, the binding was going to be messed up, or I don't know. It's goofy. I'll go into that in another video in the future after I cover all the volumes. But they did lots of different goofy things. They either put them in a bag, or they put a sticker on them, or they printed on the cover, or they did an overlay cover to signify that you were, that you needed to resubscribe. This is one of them that was like that. Ultrabots. I don't even know what that is. Sanction Earth. It's from Data East and Nova Logic. But, I really need to look into that game, because I was like, what is Ultrabot? That's the centerfold. And then on the back of that is Arcana. There's some mazes in there. Maps of the mazes. There's Zelda, which is, this one is Chapter 6. So that'd be the 6 months of the 6th month of the year. So that'd be June. We're in June now. And here is Super Mario Adventures. Now, I'm showing the Zelda ones before the Super Mario Adventures, even though Mario is a bigger franchise, because the Zelda ones actually appeared in the volumes of the magazine pages and pages before the Mario comic did. And I'm not too sure why they did that, but that's the way they did it. And there's a wedding, blah, blah, blah. Street Fighter 2. Now, this is one that I did have an overlay cover, and I had to replace this volume because I hated the way the overlay cover looked. It was very cardboardish. Card stock paper over the top of it, and it was yellow, and it said, "This is your last issue," and, that kind of goofy, crazy stuff. I really wish they wouldn't have done that. I don't mind that they did it, but it should have been an insert, or it should have been maybe a bag that surrounded the issue or the volume to let you know, not an overlay that was like attached, not a sticker, not something printed on the cover. But what can you do? And this is July, volume 38, 1992. Street Fighter 2 was becoming huge. And this was really the beginning of Super Nintendo just shooting out ahead of the Sega Genesis in the console wars at the time, because Sega didn't have a Street Fighter. They would get Mortal Kombat later on, and then later on, of course, they got Street Fighter, their own version of Street Fighter, the Champion Edition, and they also got they also made their own franchises like what was that? Man, I want to say Eternal Champions. I think that's something that they made. I think that's the name of the franchise, to try to compete with Street Fighter 2. But Street Fighter 2 was huge in arcades, and then it was like near perfect. Well, it wasn't perfect, but a near likeness on home consoles through the Super Nintendo. That was just amazing. Wings 2, Aces High, and then there's Street Fighter 2. This artwork is a little bit cooler. But there you go. And for whatever reason, I guess in America, Capcom wanted to push Guile as the hero, because, I mean, he's from America. But we all know that Ryu and Ken, to a lesser extent, were the stars of the Street Fighter series. And then going into Street Fighter 2, of course. But whatever. They made Guile the cover boy a lot. And then also the cover boy in the movie was Jean-Claude Van Damme, JCVD. Here is a game. Now, this game does not get enough clout, but it is also from Capcom. And this is like some stages from... Man, this game is so awesome. Magic Sword. So you're this main character, and you go through things. It's like a side-scroller, and you have to rescue a secondary character to help you out. And each secondary character could do different things. Like the cleric could heal you, the wizard had magic, the blah, blah, blah. Thief, he could unlock treasure chests and unlock doors for you easier. The lizard man was awesome. He could fly, and he was armored. He was really strong. He could help you out. But yeah, this Magic Sword game was amazing. And that was the back of that. They never made a big deal about that game, but they really should have, because it was a great game. I believe it started as an arcade game first, but Capcom ported it to Super Nintendo. It was great. And then here we go. The July. This is Chapter 7, Zora's Mask, of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and then there's Super Mario Adventures. I think they did another mini comic afterwards using this same kind of artwork and using this same kind of character style to, and it was funny because I thought they were going to do something with Metroid, because they had a little Samus doll that Peach wanted. But there's Peach dressed up as Luigi. Of course, at the time she was still called Princess Toadstool. When Princess Toadstool awoke last month. They're talking about the month. They never really called them episodes except for the second one, because they said I'm just calling them episodes just to categorize them easier. I could easily say part 1, 2, 3, or chapter 1, 2, 3, or book 1, 2, 3, but I'm just calling them episode 1, 2, 3. Okay, so next volume. This is when they finally started putting the month on the volume. So this is volume 39, August of 1992, Mario Paint. Now you'll see, I do not live at that address anymore, so don't stalk me, but this is, there I am. And there's my old member number too. I remember it was 100 344 050 V39. Or not V39, V391. Sorry. But yeah, that was to signify that my subscription expired in July 93. It used to put on there like what your, how long you had been a subscriber. I had been a subscriber since volume 27. But yeah, there we go. There's that. And Felix the Cat, one of the last NES games, and again, an expensive, harder to find game for collectors today. And on the back of that, there is the Turtles in Time, which is also known as Turtles 4, the Super Nintendo Turtles game, which was basically the second arcade game that they ported over. Didn't have 4 players with it, which kind of stunk. But it was a pretty good arcade port, and it was a really fun game. That's a little walkthrough on the back of that centerfold. This is when they introduced a I don't know if they just didn't want to finish it. They were just putting filler in there, or if they just didn't want to finish the story too soon in case people hadn't beaten Link to the Past yet in the actual game. Usually Nintendo doesn't like to ruin surprises. That was one of their mandates when they first started. Gail Tilda and I watched a video with her as the editor-in-chief, and she said, "Oh, we don't like to reveal the end of a game, or the full ending of a game, because that just you're kind of ruining the payoff." Other magazines would, and since then, like YouTube and all that other stuff and all these walkthroughs do that. But I don't know if they added Rome, this character, in Chapter 8 as a way to extend the life of the comic so that it would last the full 12 chapters or what. But there you go. And then here's episode 12 of the Mario comic. Now, this one, I don't think the Mario comics were definitely shorter than but this isn't the end. This was like, I don't know if it was a fake ending or what, but they were like, the Zelda comic would take up, I don't know if it was 8 to 10 pages, whereas the Mario comic in Nintendo Power Magazine during this time, they were like 6 pages maybe at the most. I can't remember, but they were shorter than the Zelda ones, let's just say that. Felix the Cat, the last centerfold. That was a trend that they usually did. They did a centerfold, and then they would do the actual cover of the next issue, or the next volume. This is September 1992, and that's volume 40. Spider-Man. This was, I can't remember what Spider-Man game this would end up being, but it says to NES, Super NES, and Game Boy. But I guess it wasn't just one game, because LGN made a couple of different games. There was a Sinister Six game, there was a Spider-Man and the X-Men game, there was, just goofy stuff that they did on different systems, depending on, which system that you had. They made a little bit of a slightly different game. But that's Carnage. He was in the Spider-Man versus the X-Men in the Arcade's Revenge on Super Nintendo, and probably the Game Boy one too. But he was also I think he was in the Sinister Six game that was on NES, which I don't know if that came out around this time, or I can't remember the history of it all. But they just generally have a generic centerfold for Spider-Man there. And Soul Blazer here. That was actually part of the book, not the centerfold. On the back of the centerfold, though, there was, you can see this Akira Toriyama type artwork, Dragon Ball, Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior type artwork for a game called Dino City. Now, I can't remember if this looks like a Super Nintendo game, but I never played it, and I don't know if it's Dino City 2 words or if it's Dino City 1 word. So there's the next Zelda comic, which is Chapter 9, getting near the end, and Episode 9 of the Super Mario Adventures. As you can see, it was not the end, the last one. Super Mario Kart. Now this Super Mario Kart, I mean, Mario branched out into, golf and into other things, but Mario Kart, I think, was the first really big other Mario franchise. I mean, Mario Paint, surprisingly, was before Mario Kart. But Super Mario Kart kind of like, you had Donkey Kong Jr. in here. That's weird, isn't it? And then they had Yoshi as a playable character, and Koopa, and not just the Koopa King himself, but I'm talking about just a Koopa in general. I mean, that's just, and the Mario Kart franchise and the Mario franchise in general has grown a lot since then because of that, I think. But this is October, volume 41 of 1992. The centerfold was Roadrunner's Death Valley Rally. And on the back of that there is Bart's Nightmare. Now there was a lot of Bart games that came out, a lot of Simpsons games. This one was weird, but this is kind of a little bit of a walkthrough there. There's the Zelda comic for that month, which was Chapter 10. And then Episode 10 of Super Mario Adventures. A bunch of booze. And this is when they started. The Super Power Club. Now, Super Power Club had certificates, which were actually just coupons. They had cards, trading cards. And later on, they would have a catalog that had all kinds of special features. Like if you were a subscriber, you are now a part of the Super Power Club. You weren't just some willy-nilly guy who bought it off the newsstand. They actually made you feel special for having a subscription. And these cards, they were different cards every volume, and they did it for about a year or more. And I can't remember how many cards there were total. That we can cover in another video. After I'm doing all the volumes, I'm going to get more in depth about the different collectibles and collector's items that were a part of collecting Nintendo Power Magazine. But there were 6 cards, and they had information on the back of them and really cool artwork on the front. If you ordered them later on through the Super Power Supplies catalog, it wasn't the full card set, but they were foiled versions of the cards, and they were actual cut cards. These are just perforated sheets, and they were random. In order to collect them all, you sometimes had to buy or actually trade with your friends who are also subscribers for different ones. And probably in my case, I probably had to buy more of them. I want to say that I have the full set, but I haven't cut them out. That's the thing. I need to number them and look them up to make sure that I got all the numbers, because I don't want to cut these perforated ones out. I had made the mistake of, when I was younger, starting to cut them out of the magazine, but I still kept them on the card, because it was like card stock. And then these were coupons for the Super Power Clubs. I didn't use mine. I kept them in there. I already had Metroid and Super Mario Land 2 at the time, and I never bought Super Mario Kart. I appreciated it. I didn't get into Super Mario Kart until Super Mario Kart 64. That was the Mario Kart. But yeah, these are power certificates, which were basically, again, retail coupons. And that was at the front of the issue. These cards were always put at the back of the volume, right before the back cover. So, Super Star Wars, which is November 1992, Volume 42. And there's Batman Fever again. You got Batman Returns. What is a Super Shooters? Oh, okay, this was there was a shooter revolution that was going on near towards the end of the NES and beginning of the Super NES lifespan, blah, blah, blah. Here is Super Star Wars, a little walkthrough here on the back of that centerfold of Batman Returns. There is Chapter 11 and of the Zelda comic, and there's Super Mario Adventures, Now, around the time, there was cartoons. There was already established cartoons in the NES era, but going into the Super Nintendo era, they had, even more cartoons. They had a Super Mario World cartoon. They had other, just other cartoons that were in syndication, like Captain N and all that stuff. So, I mean, this sort of seems a little bit like that, a little bit. The art is a little bit reminiscent of the cartoons. So calling them episodes would be appropriate, I guess. This would be episode 11. And then there was the cards. These, like I said, these aren't the same cards for everybody. They were different cards. Also to note, Nintendo Power Magazine did a color coding system. The red cards, but also red reviews and pages, and when they had type font in bold for certain games. The red ones were NES. The purple ones were Game Boy. And the green ones were for Super Nintendo. And they continued this into the mid-90s, I believe, when Super Nintendo was still going strong. Even though there wasn't a lot of NES games, I think they reverted to red to be Virtual Boy, and then purple to be Nintendo 64, I want to say, maybe. But that was later on. We'll see the color coding as time goes on, as we cover more of these years in Nintendo Power Magazine. Now here's the last volume of the year, 1992, December. This is volume 43, and it's Roadrunner's Death Valley Rally. The centerfold for this one was the Lost Vikings. And speaking of Revenge, Arcade's Revenge, Spider-Man and the X-Men. But this is worth looking into, Lost Vikings as a game, but also the history of it. And I believe it was Interplay did these. Yeah, Interplay. Which, if you learn more about the history of that, you're like, wow, they got their... It wasn't really their start, but they got big during these days, and now... Well, not now, but later on they would become even bigger with other things. So, but there's Death Valley Rally, a little walkthrough there. I call them walkthroughs for a lack of a better term, really. But here's the final battle, Chapter 12. And here is the last one for Super Mario Adventures. This is Episode 12, with all the Koopa kids and stuff. I think there was a point where Luigi, I might have missed it already, where Luigi was dressed up as Princess Toadstool. I don't know. There's Metroid 2, one of my favorite games of all time, but there you go. And then these were the trading cards. So, Dino City, they got it as one word there. So, and that does not look like the artwork. But what can you do? Yeah, this was enjoyable to go through these. It was about 30 minutes, more than 30 minutes. Thanks for watching. And next month I will be covering 1993, which will start with volume 44 of Nintendo Power Magazine. Thanks for watching, everybody, and happy collecting out there. Hope this helps you.